The movie opens with a simple-minded young man named Baron, who is arrested while carrying a substantial amount of cash after a robbery. Following his arrest, Baron is sent to a maximum security prison where he shares a cell with a man named Otis. As they introduce themselves, Baron discovers that Otis is a seasoned criminal who has successfully escaped from prison multiple times. Desperate to escape, Baron pleads with Otis for help, explaining that he needs to get out to meet his girlfriend at an undisclosed location the following day. However, Otis responds that he does not trust anyone, including himself. In light of this, Baron proposes a deal to Otis, offering him a reward of $250,000 if he can help him escape successfully. Intrigued by the promise of such a sum, Otis agrees to assist Baron but becomes curious about the source of the money. Baron then shares his story of how he ended up in prison. He explains that prior to his incarceration, he worked at a local post office, using his earnings to buy medication for his terminally ill mother, Etta. However, he lost his job after refusing to cut his hair. That day, when he returns home, Baron finds a letter in his mailbox informing him that the price of his mother's medication has increased. Later, he gives Ida her pills with a moon pie and tells her about the price hike, reassuring her that he will find a way to manage it. In the following days, Baron searches for a new job but is unsuccessful. Frustrated, he visits a lonely park and lies down on the grass. Soon after, a car driven by a woman with pink hair and clothing pulls up. She approaches Baron and remarks that she thought he was dead. The woman then asks him what fun activities the town offers, to which Baron replies that there is nothing exciting to do. She drives off but later returns to the park, where she sees Baron angrily smashing a tree branch against a swing. The woman playfully teases him for his behavior and introduces herself as Marmalade. Eventually, Baron shares with Marmalade that there are indeed enjoyable activities in town, including a walking trail where they can listen to armadillos cry at night, an abandoned quarry, and an ice cream shop. Excited by the prospect, Marmalade insists that Baron show her around town, and they set off together to have fun. At the quarry, Marmalade confides in Baron that she has spent most of her life in foster care. In return, Baron opens up about his mother's illness and shares that he has never met his father since childhood. Afterward, Baron informs Marmalade about the increasing cost of his mother's medication, explaining that the owner of the pharmaceutical company that produces it is wealthy and greedy. In response, Marmalade advises Baron that if the system fails him, he should create his own. Later, Baron takes Marmalade home as she expresses a desire to spend the night with him. He introduces her to his mother, and soon, Baron and Marmalade begin to develop a romantic relationship. With no source of income, they brainstorm ways to afford Ida's medication. Baron suggests renting out the unused rooms in the house, but Marmalade convinces him that they should rob a bank instead, which leaves Baron in shock. However, feeling he has no other choice, Baron eventually agrees, and they start scouting for banks in various towns. After selecting a target, they draw a rough sketch of the bank's layout and begin planning their heist. Marmalade also takes the time to teach Baron how to shoot a gun. Later on, they decide to get matching tattoos on their ankles. Marmalade chooses a heart tattoo with Baron's name inside, while Baron intends to get Marmalade's name tattooed on a jar. But the tattoo artist misspells it by omitting the first R. They ultimately decide to go with Mama instead, as a tribute to his mother. One day, Baron notices that some of his mother's pills are missing. The following day, he asks Marmalade about it, but she ignores his question. That morning, they go shopping for supplies for their planned heist and break into a wooden shed that they use as a hiding spot. Later that day, Baron presses Marmalade to share the story of her mother and how she ended up in foster care. Though initially hesitant, Marmalade eventually reveals that she no longer communicates with her biological mother because she failed to protect her from her foster father, who would lock her in dog cages, abuse her, and whip her with his cane, along with other foster children. Baron comforts Marmalade, promising to protect her and declaring that he will be her knight in shining armor. Soon after, they enter a store to buy masks for their upcoming heist. Marmalade selects 2 expensive masks, but Baron quickly reminds her that they can't afford them. In response, Marmalade pulls out her gun and attempts to rob the cashier. When she is unable to open the safe, she knocks him out instead, and they manage to escape. Afterwards, Baron feels guilty about the robbery, suggesting they could sell a few items to make money. However, Marmalade persuades him that they only need one big heist to achieve their dream life. Later that night, they hear Ada coughing, and Marmalade insists on checking on her. Moments later, Marmalade bursts out of the room screaming, and Baron enters to find his mother dead. Marmalade insists that she had no idea what happened, claiming she briefly left the room and returned to find Ada lifeless. In prison, Otis comforts the tearful Baron over the loss of his mother, revealing that his own mother has been ill for most of his life and that he is uncertain whether she is even alive. Baron inquires why Otis has chosen not to visit his mother, and Otis explains that she lives in her childhood home in Kingston, Jamaica, and that their relationship is quite complicated. Shortly afterward, they are summoned to the prison dining hall. While they eat, other inmates target Baron, stealing his food and even pushing his face into his plate. Then, another inmate tries to punch Baron, but Otis intervenes, putting the attacker in a chokehold, which ignites a riot in the dining hall. The prison guards quickly handcuff Otis and escort him out of the dining area. Once they are out of sight from the other inmates, it is revealed that Otis is not a prisoner. He is actually an undercover FBI agent assigned to apprehend Marmalade, who has been identified as a serial robber. Otis was placed as Baron's cellmate with the hope that he could extract information about Marmalade's whereabouts. Later, Otis meets with the chief warden and his team, and they agree to stage an escape for Baron, anticipating that he will lead them to Marmalade. During this time, a warden informs them that Baron is on a phone call, and they decide to track the call, believing it might provide a lead on Marmalade. Later, Otis returns to his cell and urges Baron to continue his story. Baron reveals that after his mother's death, he intended to return to the post office to reclaim his job. However, Marmalade disagrees, disclosing that she is pregnant with Baron's child. She insists that they need to carry out the robbery immediately to secure a better life for their unborn baby. After offering a prayer for the success of their heist, Baron tells Marmalade that he will not participate in the robbery itself and insists on being the getaway driver only. Immediately, Marmalade prepares for the heist, donning her signature all-pink outfit and her three-face mask. When they arrive at the front of the bank, Baron starts to panic, but Marmalade reassures him. She enters the bank to carry out the robbery, while Baron takes his place in the driver's seat, ready to make a quick getaway. Moments later, Marmalade rushes out of the bank, and they both escape to their secret cabin. Inside the cabin, Marmalade celebrates their successful heist by splashing the cash around the room. However, Baron tells her that the amount of money she stole is far more than they need to start a new life. He questions her about her extensive knowledge of banks and how to rob them. After some hesitation, Marmalade confesses that she has committed several bank robberies in the past. She explains that during those heists, she only acquired chump change and had resolved to quit robbing banks before meeting Baron. However, she decided to go for one last job to secure a new life with him. Overwhelmed by this revelation, Baron leaves the room feeling disappointed. Eventually, they reconcile, and Marmalade reminds him that they are now a team of 3. Including their unborn child. Later, Marmalade asks Baron to retrieve the mask from the car so they can burn them. While searching for the masks, Baron discovers a bottle of his mother's pills hidden in the car. Furious, he confronts Marmalade with a gun, demanding to know why she had the pills stashed away. Marmalade pleads with him, insisting that she kept the pills for emergencies and simply forgot them in the car. At that moment, police officers arrive outside the cabin, threatening to break in if they do not surrender. Baron suggests that they give themselves up and apologize, but Marmalade insists that they split the money and later meet up at their favorite spot at 3:30 p.m. the following day. Baron nods in agreement. Marmalade then leaves with half of the money, while Baron chooses to surrender to the police. Back in prison, Otis reassures Baron that he will help him escape, but he requests to know the location where they will meet Marmalade. Baron insists that the meeting place is a secret but promises to give Otis $250,000 as agreed. The next day, one of the guards takes Otis out of his cell, allowing him to disguise himself as a laundry worker. Otis then hides Baron inside a laundry basket filled with towels and bed linen, approaching the prison's main door with the basket. However, one of the prison guards, unaware of the planned escape, decides to stop Otis. In that moment, Otis hands Baron a car key and quickly wheels him outside. The prison guard immediately apprehends Otis, but other FBI agents intervene just in time. This allows Baron to escape while the FBI agents pursue him in another vehicle. They first follow Baron to a florist, where he buys flowers and later places them on a grave believed to be his mother's. Afterward, they track him to an ice cream shop, which is thought to be the secret meeting spot he mentioned, as he and Marmalade often enjoyed ice cream together. Once Baron's getaway car exits the parking lot, they closely follow him until he makes a quick stop halfway. However, as they attempt to apprehend him, they realize that the driver is neither Baron nor Marmalade, but an employee from the ice cream shop. The employee reveals that Baron had told him he could keep the car if he successfully drove it around town. At this point, Otis realizes that Baron has outsmarted him. He calls for an all-out search for both Baron and Marmalade. It is then revealed that Baron left the ice cream shop in a yellow car parked outside. He drives to the cabin, where he uncovers bags of money hidden inside the chimney, along with newspaper clippings indicating that he had known about Otis being an undercover agent all along. Meanwhile, Otis rushes to the grave that Baron had visited, only to discover that the grave does not belong to Ida. He finds that Baron didn't leave a bouquet, but rather a jar of marmalade with Mama written on it, just like his tattoo. Realizing the implications, Otis requests photographs from the bank's CCTV footage. Soon he understands that Baron is not as foolish as he pretended to be, as he notices that the robber in the footage has the same tattoo as Baron. It is then revealed that Marmalade never existed. All the robberies were carried out by Baron disguised as a drag queen. Meanwhile, Baron cuts his hair, puts on a dress and a blonde wig, and successfully passes through a police checkpoint, evading capture while disguised as a woman. Once out of town, he walks into a pharmaceutical store under the name Meister Lamram to pick up a large order of pleonexia for Etta Lamram, which, when spelled backward, reads Marmalade. At the same time, Otis and his team finally trace Baron's prison call to a company named Baron Pharmaceutical, the same company that produces pleonexia. Upon their arrival, they meet Don Frankel, the CEO of the company. Don soon reveals that the stolen money actually belongs to him. After learning that the agents have not yet apprehended the robber, he angrily turns away. However, Otis begins to suspect that Don Frankel might be the same person Baron referred to as Marmalade's abusive foster father. Otis confirms whether Don Frankel still fosters children and subsequently sends his team to check for the cages mentioned in Baron's story. The FBI quickly confirms Otis's suspicions, leading to Don Frankel's immediate arrest. Moments later, Otis discovers a moon pie cake tucked into the wing mirror of his vehicle, realizing that Baron must have sent another message and that he was likely nearby recently. Baron then enters a nearby store directly across from the company, where the pharmacist informs him that Baron had purchased the entire stock of pleonexia and left to get a ticket from a nearby travel agent. Otis heads to the travel agent and finds that Baron left him an envelope. Inside, he discovers a note from Baron that reads, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. I'm taking care of my mother. I hope you'll do the same. Farewell, secret agent." Additionally, Otis learns that Baron purchased first-class tickets for him to Jamaica so he could visit his own mother. The next day, Baron pulls into a staff parking space at a nursing home. Once inside, he approaches the front desk nurse, who hands him a clipboard and keys, revealing that he also works there. Baron goes from room to room, delivering free medication to the residents. Finally, he reaches Ada's room, where he replenishes her medication. Afterward, he enters the room to spend time with her, offering her a moon pie as they both gaze out the window.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.